They say silent strength is rare, but why is it the most transformative kind of power? Have you ever met someone whose strength doesn't shout but whispers? Someone who faces life's toughest storms without complaint, whose silence carries more power than words ever could. Here's why silent strength is one of the most misunderstood and unshakable forces in the world. Silent strength is a language we often overlook. A resilience so profound it doesn't need to be loud to be heard. Today, we're exploring the incredible untold power of women who carry their pain quietly. Through biblical wisdom, real-life inspiration, and the deep truths of faith, we'll discover what makes their silent strength unbreakable. By the end of this video, you'll see that their quiet endurance isn't just strength. It's a divine testimony. But how does silent strength truly manifest in our daily lives? Let's explore. In a world that celebrates loudness, visible achievements, and public displays of emotion, quiet strength often goes unnoticed. Society teaches us that to be strong, we have to be outspoken, bold, and unshakable on the outside. But what happens when strength looks different? When it's carried silently with grace and dignity, instead of being proclaimed to the world? For many women, the greatest battles are fought in silence. Pain that isn't shared, tears cried alone, struggles endured without a word. And yet, this kind of strength is often dismissed. People assume that silence means weakness or lack of courage, but the truth couldn't be more different. In a world that thrives on noise, where loud opinions and public victories often steal the spotlight, true strength can seem invisible. But there's a power that doesn't need applause. It's the silent strength of a woman who carries her pain with dignity, not seeking recognition, not demanding attention. Instead, she endures with quiet resilience, rooted deeply in faith. Think of a tree standing firm in the midst of a storm. The winds may howl and the rain may pour, but it remains unshaken. Its secret? Deep roots that anchor it to the ground. This is the essence of silent strength. It's not about stubbornness, it's about trust. Trust in something greater than the storm. Trust in God. C.S. Lewis captured this kind of strength beautifully. In The Problem of Pain, he writes, "Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain." Silent strength doesn't ignore pain. It listens, embraces it, and transforms it through faith. This is not weakness. This is courage, the kind of courage that comes from knowing God walks with you, even in silence. If this message has touched your heart, I encourage you to share it with someone who might need encouragement today. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you and sustain you eternally. You've heard about strength, but have you ever seen it in the quiet actions of Hannah or Mary? Let's step back into the story of Hannah, a woman who lived in a society where a woman's worth was tied to her ability to have children. Year after year, Hannah endured the shame of infertility. Her rival, Peninnah, mocked her cruelly, and the world around her offered no refuge. Yet Hannah chose silence, not out of defeat, but out of trust. She didn't lash out or seek validation from others. Instead, she brought her pain to God, pouring out her heart in prayer. Her lips moved, but no sound came. This act wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a bold declaration of faith. Hannah trusted that God could hear her silent cries, and in his perfect timing, he answered her prayer with a son, Samuel, who would change the course of Israel's history. What does Hannah teach us? Silent strength doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means knowing where to take them. Instead of letting bitterness consume her, Hannah turned her anguish into worship. She shows us that God hears even the prayers we can't put into words. Now consider Mary, the mother of Jesus. When the angel Gabriel told her she would bear the Messiah, her world turned upside down. The weight of public judgment, the uncertainty of her future, she faced it all with quiet faith. Her response? Simple but profound. I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled. Luke 1:38. Mary didn't need to fight for control. She trusted God's plan, even when it disrupted everything she knew. Her silent strength wasn't resignation. It was peace found in obedience. Like Hannah, she teaches us that silent strength is rooted in surrender. Surrender not to circumstances, but to God's will. C.S. Lewis's words in Mere Christianity echo Mary's story. Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods. Mary held on. She trusted when the path ahead seemed unclear. Her story invites us to do the same. What does silent strength teach us about our relationship with God? The answer might surprise you. Today's world rewards those who shout the loudest. Social media thrives on visibility. Success often feels tied to recognition, but God doesn't measure strength by how loudly we proclaim it. As Isaiah 30:15 reminds us, in quietness and trust is your strength. Silent strength defies the world's expectations. It's the calm in the chaos, the steady hand in the storm. While the world may misunderstand it, God treasures it. C.S. Lewis reflected on this in The Weight of Glory. The load, or weight or burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid daily on my back. Silent strength carries others, often unnoticed, yet deeply impactful. So, how does silent strength look in real life? Think of the mother who sacrifices quietly for her children, never asking for recognition. The caregiver who tends to a loved one day after day, with no audience applauding. The friend who listens without judgment, offering presence instead of advice. Their actions don't make headlines, but they reflect the heart of Christ. Silent strength also resists the pull of bitterness. Life often feels unfair, and pain can plant seeds of resentment. But Hebrews 12:15 warns us about letting bitterness take root. It spreads, poisoning our hearts and relationships. Women like Hannah and Mary chose grace over resentment. They entrusted their struggles to God, refusing to let their pain define them. C.S. Lewis offers this encouragement. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. Silent strength embraces this vulnerability, loving deeply and trusting that God holds every tear and every heartache. There's something sacred about silence. It creates space to hear God's voice, to process emotions, and to find hope in His promises. Silent strength doesn't seek attention. It seeks God. And in that seeking, it finds peace that surpasses understanding. Philippians 4:7. This kind of strength often goes unnoticed. People may mistake calmness for indifference or silence for passivity. But beneath the surface lies a fierce battle, one that only God can see. Silent strength isn't about hiding pain. It's about entrusting it to the one who truly understands. Bitterness, for many women carrying unspoken pain, begins as a faint whisper. It tells her life is unfair, that others have it easier, or that she has been overlooked. If left unchecked, this whisper grows, taking root deep within her heart. It clouds her mind, steals her joy, and creates a barrier between her and the peace she longs for. The Bible warns us in Hebrews 12:15, "See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many." Bitterness doesn't remain confined to one heart. It spreads, influencing relationships and distorting how we interact with those around us. Yet a woman of silent strength chooses a different path. Instead of letting resentment define her, she turns her pain into prayer. She refuses to let bitterness take hold of her heart, trusting God to carry the weight she cannot. Silent strength doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It doesn't mean ignoring emotions or denying the reality of suffering. Instead, it's a deliberate choice, a steady decision to endure with grace. A woman with this strength may cry in the stillness of her room, or pour her heart out to God in the quiet of night. Her tears flow freely, but she chooses not to let them crush her spirit. Her silence isn't emptiness. It's not an absence of feeling. It's a shield, protecting her from the chaos of the world. A sacred space where she can process her struggles without judgment. People might see her calm demeanor and mistake it for indifference, but beneath her exterior lies a battle. She feels deeply, yet she knows not every emotion needs to be shared. Her decision to hold some struggles close isn't about isolation. It's about preserving what is sacred, what belongs only to her and to God. The courage of a woman who carries her pain in silence challenges society's view of strength. In a world that equates power with visibility and noise, her quiet endurance speaks volumes. It reminds us that true resilience often takes place in the unseen corners of the heart, far from public eyes. Silent strength isn't about seeking validation. It's about finding peace in God's promises. Bitterness can be a tempting path, especially when life feels overwhelmingly unfair. It whispers lies that distance us from God and others. But women of silent strength like Hannah resist this temptation. They choose grace, pouring their pain into prayer and trusting God's plan over their understanding. This choice not only protects their hearts from resentment, but also nurtures love and faith in their relationships. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and spread this word of hope to others in need. Together, we can remind the world of God's love and grace. Silent strength teaches us to embrace the stillness. It's in these moments that God meets us, offering comfort and renewal. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Whether we cry out loud or sit silently in His presence, God hears us. Silent strength is not about denying reality, but about finding hope amidst pain. It's about choosing to trust in God's timing, even when the answers aren't immediate. It's about releasing control and accepting life as it is, while believing that God can work through even the hardest circumstances. To the woman reading this, feeling unseen or misunderstood, know this: your silent strength is not a weakness. It's a profound act of faith, rooted in wisdom and courage. God sees the burdens you carry, the tears you cry in solitude, and the prayers you whisper when words fail. You are not alone. Just as God walked with Hannah and Mary, He walks with you. Silent strength is a reflection of God's grace, a reminder that He is near, even when the world feels distant. Let their stories inspire you to trust Him more deeply, to choose grace over bitterness, and to find peace in the quietness of His presence. Like a tree deeply rooted, you too can stand firm, weathering the fiercest storms with a faith that anchors you in God's unchanging love. For many women, the greatest challenge in seasons of pain and uncertainty is learning to let go. There's a natural pull to fix what feels broken, to untangle the chaos, or to wrestle against life's unfair circumstances. But a woman of silent strength embraces a different wisdom. She understands that not everything in life can be controlled or even fully understood. This understanding isn't born out of resignation, but from a quiet acknowledgement of life's complexities. She knows that struggling against the unchangeable only deepens the ache. Instead, she turns her heart toward God, trusting in His sovereignty, believing His plans far exceed her own understanding. If this message has touched you, consider liking this video and subscribing to join our journey. Each like, each subscription helps us reach more hearts with His Word, and together, we can make a difference. Thank you for being here, and may God's light guide you today, and always. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us of this truth. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. This profound reminder calls us to surrender, to accept that God's wisdom is infinite, and His purposes, even when hidden, are always good. Many misunderstand the meaning of acceptance. They see it as passivity or giving up, but true acceptance is neither. It's a brave choice, a deliberate decision to face reality while trusting that God can redeem even the darkest moments. A woman with silent strength doesn't pretend her pain isn't real. She doesn't deny her emotions or suppress her struggles. Instead, she chooses to focus on what she can control: her responses, her attitude, and her faith. She places what lies beyond her power into the hands of God, knowing He alone can carry the weight of the burdens she cannot bear. This kind of acceptance demands humility. It requires acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that some questions may remain unresolved in this life. Yet in this humility there is freedom. By releasing her need to control, a woman frees herself from the impossible expectations that once weighed her down. When she lets go, she finds something extraordinary: peace. Not the fleeting peace the world offers, but a deep, unshakable calm that comes from knowing she's not alone. This peace allows her to live fully in the present, unshackled by regrets of the past or anxieties about the future. Mary, the mother of Jesus, exemplifies this freedom beautifully. After receiving Gabriel's life-altering message, she didn't rush to control her circumstances. She didn't seek answers to every question or reassurance from others. Instead, she responded with quiet trust. I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled. Luke 1:38. Mary's willingness to release control opened her heart to experience the joy of being part of God's plan, even amidst challenges. Her story reminds us that letting go isn't about losing. It's about making room for God to work in ways we couldn't imagine. Life is filled with mysteries. For the woman who carries her pain in silence, some questions may never have clear answers. Why do certain prayers seem to go unanswered? Why do certain paths lead to heartache? These are questions that may remain a mystery. But silent strength chooses to rest in the knowledge that God's understanding far surpasses ours. Proverbs 3:5-6 offers this guiding truth. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. This trust doesn't erase the sorrow or confusion, but it provides a steady foundation, offering hope in the face of uncertainty. The wisdom of silent strength doesn't stop with personal circumstances. It extends into relationships. A woman who has learned to release control understands that she cannot dictate the actions or choices of others. Instead of striving to change people, she chooses to accept them as they are. This acceptance isn't about ignoring harmful behavior or tolerating mistreatment. It's about offering grace and understanding, recognizing that everyone is on their own journey. She creates a safe space for others to be themselves, free from the weight of unrealistic expectations. In this grace, she reflects the love of Christ, who embraces us in our brokenness and gently calls us to grow in Him. Her relationships become places of healing, where love flourishes, not through control, but through compassion. Life is full of moments that require letting go, relationships that fade, dreams that remain unfulfilled, seasons that shift. For a woman of silent strength, letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means holding life with open hands, cherishing the blessings she has while trusting God to guide what comes next. Letting go often feels like loss, and it can bring grief and vulnerability. Yet, it also opens the door to new beginnings, to opportunities we could never have seen if we clung too tightly to what was. Through this surrender, she discovers that God's provision is always enough, even when the path ahead feels uncertain. In letting go, she learns to focus her energy where it matters most, living faithfully, loving deeply, and trusting completely. Silent strength isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. Her silence isn't emptiness, it's a presence. It's a quiet declaration of her faith, a way of saying, God is enough. She doesn't need words to communicate her resilience or love. Her actions, her kindness, and her unwavering faith speak louder than anything she could say. In the quiet resilience of her being, a woman speaks a language that surpasses words. Her presence alone carries meaning, offering connection, compassion, and understanding to those around her. Through her gentle actions, an encouraging smile, a tender embrace, or a simple nod, she communicates care more powerfully than any speech. This silent strength shows us that sometimes love and courage don't require words. They require presence. When someone is struggling, the world often urges us to solve their problems, to offer advice or solutions. But a woman who carries her burdens silently knows a deeper truth. Sometimes, the greatest comfort doesn't come from words. It comes from simply being there. This ministry of presence is beautifully reflected in the story of Job. When Job endured unbearable suffering, his friends initially showed wisdom. They sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. Job 2:13. Their silence acknowledged the weight of Job's pain, offering companionship without judgment or explanation. A woman with silent strength knows that small gestures often carry the most profound weight. A light touch on the shoulder, a warm glance, or the simple act of listening can say, I see you. You're not alone. These quiet actions may seem ordinary, but they are transformative. They remind others of their worth, offering love that is steady and selfless. Jesus modeled this beautifully. In John 13:3-5, he knelt and washed his disciples' feet, a simple, humble act that spoke volumes about love and service. Without a single word, he demonstrated what it means to care deeply, to put others first. Similarly, a woman with silent strength expresses her compassion not through grand declarations, but through thoughtful, intentional acts. Each subscribe is a blessing, and God will multiply your kindness, returning it to you in unexpected ways. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. True listening is an art, and a woman with silent strength masters it with grace. She knows that listening isn't just about hearing words. It's about understanding the emotions and struggles behind them. In a world filled with interruptions and noise, her quiet attentiveness stands out. She doesn't rush to fill silences or offer quick solutions. Instead, she creates a safe space, allowing others to feel valued and heard. This kind of listening isn't passive. It's an active form of care. It's her way of saying, "You matter, and I'm here for you." One of her most remarkable qualities is her ability to hold space for others without centering herself. Because she has carried her own struggles in silence, she understands the sacredness of allowing others to process their emotions freely. This act of generosity requires setting aside her own needs and offering an open heart. This mirrors how Jesus interacted with people. When he met the Samaritan woman at the well in John 4, he didn't rush to judge or lecture her. Instead, he asked questions, listened deeply, and allowed her to share her story. Through his attentive presence, she experienced transformation. A woman with silent strength follows this example, offering her presence as a gift to those in need. When words fail in moments of deep grief or hardship, silent strength becomes a refuge. For the woman who embodies this, her presence is a reminder that no one has to face their struggles alone. She doesn't demand explanations or solutions. She simply offers a calm, steady presence that reassures and comforts. There's an old saying, "Actions speak louder than words." And for a woman of silent strength, this couldn't be more true. Her love, patience, and resilience shine through how she lives, not just through what she says. Consider Jesus during his trial. Surrounded by accusations and mockery, he chose silence. As Isaiah 53:7 describes, he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter. And as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Imagine facing the hardest moments of your life with quiet courage. What would that look like for you? This silence wasn't weakness. It was a profound act of trust in God's plan. Jesus didn't need to defend himself because his actions spoke for him. In the same way, a woman with silent strength doesn't need to explain or justify her choices. Her life, through her kindness, her faithfulness, and her quiet courage, testifies to her character. A woman with silent strength brings peace to those around her. In the face of life's storms, she remains calm, steady, and unwavering. She doesn't let fear dictate her actions, and her calmness reassures those in her presence. Her quiet strength reminds us that challenges don't have to define or control us. Instead, they can refine us, shaping us into vessels of grace and love. Her sensitivity to others' unspoken needs is one of her greatest gifts. She notices the subtle sadness in someone's eyes, the hesitation in their voice, or the quiet tension in their body. Without being asked, she responds with kindness and care. Her intuition is a form of silent communication, saying, "I see you, and I understand." It's this attentiveness that allows her to support others in ways that words alone never could. At its core, the strength of her silent presence is an act of love. It's a decision to prioritize connection over explanation, understanding over judgment. Her actions speak to the heart in ways words never could. This love isn't dramatic or attention-seeking. It's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. As 1 Corinthians 13:7 beautifully describes, "Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." Through her silent strength, she carries the burdens of those around her, reflecting the unchanging love of Christ. Ultimately, her silent strength reminds us of a language beyond speech, a way of connecting that touches the soul. This language is spoken through her presence, her actions, and her gentle attentiveness. Her strength doesn't need applause or recognition. It's felt in the peace she brings, the love she gives without expectation, and the hope she inspires in others. Her life becomes a quiet testimony to God's grace, showing that true communication often transcends words. The greatest acts of strength are often unseen, but they leave the deepest impact. Here's why. Silent strength as an act of love. At its core, silent strength is a form of love. It prioritizes connection over explanation and understanding over judgment. This love isn't dramatic or loud. It's steady, quiet, and deeply rooted in faith. As 1 Corinthians 13:7 says, "Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." Women who carry their pain in silence reflect this love in profound ways. Let's write down. God is my strength. Together let us embrace the extraordinary power that God gives us. Women who carry their pain in silence are not weak. They lean on His strength, guarding their beautiful hearts with grace and resilience. Through God's love, they find the courage to endure and the wisdom to trust in His perfect plan. Jesus Himself demonstrated this silent strength. During His trial, He remained silent before His accusers. Isaiah 53:7 describes Him. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet He did not open His mouth. His silence wasn't weakness. It was an unshakable trust in God's plan. Women with silent strength embody this same courage. They don't need to announce their struggles or seek validation because their actions speak louder than words. Their presence alone can bring peace, comfort, and hope to those around them. Silent strength isn't about denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about facing life's challenges with dignity, trusting that God is working through every tear and trial. It's about surrendering control, letting go of resentment, and choosing to endure with grace. Women who carry their pain silently remind us that strength doesn't always need a voice. Their quiet resilience is a testimony to the power of faith and the unchanging love of Christ. They show us that true strength lies not in how loudly we speak, but in how faithfully we endure. So, the next time you meet someone who carries their pain quietly, take a moment to see their strength. It's a reminder that even in silence, there's a powerful story of faith, love, and courage unfolding. If this message touched your heart, subscribe to hear more stories of faith and hope. We invite you to continue watching. In the top left corner, you'll find our most loved video on the channel, a viewer favorite filled with inspiration and encouragement. And on the right, don't miss our playlist of hand-picked, impactful videos, each one crafted to bless and nourish your soul. Thank you for joining us on this journey. May each video be a source of peace and strength in your life.